Why the agents are not taking you seriously. That is the topic of today's podcast episode, and I'm going to give you the 5-minute fix that you can take and plug into your property business today to start seeing different results. Now, a little bit of a spoiler alert. Agents do not reward people who are enthusiastic. They reward certainty. So I want to talk today, guys, about, well, potentially the biggest ego dent in property. And I get it. You know, you ring an agent, you're relatively polite to them, you come across as keen. You try and instill a little bit of confidence in your voice, even though you've been floating around a million different strategies, or even if you're new. And then you're hit with absolutely nothing. You don't get any callbacks. They're certainly not passing you any deals. And even worse than that, they're not even saying, well, I'll keep you posted. In fact, all that's really happened in this instance is that you have been Casper ghosted. I want you to understand something. This happens a lot, and it's very, very rarely personal. It's usually because, and I say this with love and kindness, it's usually because you sound either desperate, you sound uneducated, sorry, not sorry, or you sound like you could be a lot of work. So what I want to do in today's episode is give you the 5-minute fix that can encourage agents to really understand that you're not an amateur. I want to give you the script that gets you treated like a serious buyer. I also want to talk to you about the follow-up system that turns no's into here's an off-market opportunity. And then there's one line that flips the power dynamic between agents and property sourcers. And that is simply saying, I place stock with pre-qualified funded clients. I place stock with pre-qualified funded clients. So this episode today, guys, is for people who are relatively new to the world of property sourcing, who feel like they've really got nothing to say to the agents. But equally, it's also for the slightly more experienced property sourcers and investors who are calling but are still getting absolutely as a result of their efforts. This is not a case of when you're dealing with the agents of being more confident. What I really need you to be when you're dealing with the agents is more certain. And certainty is a clear criteria, a clear process, a consistent follow-up. You don't need to have a decade of experience in order for this to work. Here's what you need to understand. Estate agents are paid on transactions. They are paid when the property completes. They're also very busy. Sometimes, other times, I wonder, to be perfectly honest, what they're doing. But on a whole, they're busy. And they are completely and utterly allergic to time wasters. And there are 5 signals that make them put you in the it's never going to happen bucket. The first sign, or the first thing that you can say that puts you in the sin bin is you ask, have you got any deals? Right? You think people don't ask this, do. Have you got any deals? What they are actually hearing, reading between the lines, is I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing. And there's a good chance I've come off the back of a 2-day crash course. Please give me something. Agents don't have deals, right? They don't have deals. What they do have are opportunities, stock. So you have to speak like a buyer. The second signal that gets you put in the sin bin with the agents is saying things like being very vague, saying 2 or 3 bed, or in a nice area with a good yield. Or my particular favourite, and this one drives me up the wall, is I'm open to anything. I'll look at anything. Well, look, that's not a criteria. It's really not. It's it's like horoscope reading, to be honest. Horoscope, should I say. If you're vague, you'll waste their time, and you're going to waste their time because they will end up showing you stuff that doesn't fit your criteria. So if you're vague, you're the third signal that gets you put in the sin bin is the fact that you overshare. Some people call agents and start confessing like they're paying for an hour on a chaise lounge in a very expensive psychologist's office, right? And they'll say things like, well, I'm just starting out and I've been doing loads of learning and I've been consuming lots of videos on YouTube, and I've actually just come off the back of a seminar at the weekend and it focused a lot on buy-to-lets, and we're looking at serviced accommodation. Listen, they're not looking for that honesty. What they are looking for is certainty. You can be new to the world of property sourcing, but you can still be very clear and you can still be professional. Get that into your head. I don't need you divulging the contents of your traumatic weekend, like a therapy session, on the phone to estate agents because you're getting sin binned and you're never coming out of it. Number 4 that gets you put in the sidelines is that your criteria is unrealistic. And this is something that happens consistently, right? I'll give you an example. If your criteria is, something along the lines of, a 60k purchase and I want to bring in £900 a month cash flow and I want it to be in a really good area and ideally no refurb. Right, well, I want to be very honest with you here. That is not property sourcing. That is straight up hallucination. Straight up hallucinations. You're not getting a property for £60,000. The cash flow is £900 a month in a good area that requires no refurb unless you're buying a drug den, and it will not be in a good area. And at some point, that property will be rated. You may, in my instance, bring it back to my first deal, it was £39,999 and I bought it for myself. And what I didn't realise was that it was a drug den. And it was also in a paramilitary stronghold area of Belfast that I knew all about. So if you're looking for those types of deals, you're hallucinating. The 5th signal that gets you sin bin with the agents is the fact that you cannot prove that you could proceed. So if they ask questions like cash buyer or mortgage, if they ask questions around your timeline and your time frame, if they ask questions around your proof of funds, your agreement in principle, your solicitor's details, and if you start to sound unsure about any of that, they immediately get their guard up, their spidey senses are tingling, and they're thinking, absolutely not, this person is not serious, and they move on to the next. Now, what's important here for newcomers to property sourcing is that you don't need to have all these things personally, but you do need to have a process for them. So how do we fix it? Well, that's quite easy. Well, it's easy if you do it. You have to first of all stop trying to impress them with enthusiasm. This is not kindergarten summer club. It's not. We don't need to be doing cartwheels and handstands and roly-polies with them. But I do need you to start leading with certainty, because agents do not reward enthusiasm, they reward certainty. So what I'd love to do, and you can pause this podcast, you can write this down, you can pause, replay as many times as you need, but I want to give you the 60-second script that changes everything. You could use it on calls, you can use it on emails, you can use it on WhatsApp. But I'll typically say, hi, let's just say it's John. Hey John, it's Danielle Bell. Just a very quick one. I'm currently placing stock opportunities with a portfolio of qualified investor buyers, and I'm looking to speak to whoever handles your investor criteria. Now that single line positions you as value driven. If they say, yes, Danielle, that would be me, then absolutely fantastic. You're speaking to the right person. The second thing that I want you to do is I want you to start giving them criteria that doesn't actually waste any time. So you might go on to say, John, we're buying 2 to 3 bed terraced houses and semi-detached houses in North Belfast or North Yorkshire or South Yorkshire or wherever. And we have a budget up to £150,000. A light refurb is fine, John, but we're really not looking to have a look at anything structural, and we're aiming for approximately £300 cash flow after costs. Do you have anything, John, in your current stock that might fit that criteria? What have I done there? I have been very clear and I have not waffled. Then we move on to step number 3, and this is really proving that you can proceed. So if you're new, you can say, look, my client is ready to move when it fits, and we can make decisions pretty quickly. We've also got our solicitor ready to go once we have agreed the terms of sale. Now, you're not lying in this instance because, side note, you should have investors lined up for any deal before you agree them. So hopefully you're not lying. You're stating the process. Now, if you're more experienced and you're trying to level up how you approach the agents, you can say, John, we have our proof of funds or our agreement in principle available, and we can offer on this particular property within the next 24 to 48 hours, provided the numbers stack. We've completed recently and we're actively acquiring this order. Now, this is important. We're now in April. We've just finished quarter 1. We're heading into quarter 2, April, May, June. I want you to use that terminology if you're more experienced when you are dealing with the agents. Pick what's true and then keep it short. Then you want to have a look at step 4, which is essentially the stock puller question, as I would call it. And I'll often say, what have you got that fits my criteria? Even if it's not yet online yet, John. What have you got currently, or what have you got due to come on for sale that fits that criteria, even even if it's only 80% of that criteria. Or I might then say something along the lines of, John, what's coming up this week that you haven't put online yet? And that is where your off-market opportunity starts. Then you want to have a look at locking in the relationship. And I like to say, particularly with new agents, I'll say, when do you prefer that I check in weekly? That's what I like to do. Are Mondays better for you or are Thursdays? And what you're doing here is absolutely critical, because you're training them and you're building a routine, and you are subtly letting them know, hey, I'm going to be checking in every week. Is a Monday or a Thursday better for you? And agents love routine because it means you're not chaotic. It means that you're not ringing them on a Wednesday at 10:30 when they're in the middle of their fifth cup of coffee and maybe they're out on viewings. They know every Monday or every Thursday or every Tuesday at around 10 o'clock, Danielle will check in. The same should be true for you. And then you want to have a follow-up system that turns the initial no's into access to off-market. And this is where most people fail, because they'll call once and they'll get a response of, we don't have anything at the minute. And then what happens is these same people disappear for 6 weeks. And that is why you don't remembered. So I want to give you a follow-up system that works for people who are new to this and people who are more experienced. So you want to have a weekly touch point. And I send this every single week. I'll say, morning, John, do you have any 2 or 3 bed terraces or semi-detached in West Belfast at the moment? You know we've got a budget up to 150. Is there anything coming on this week? You know that a light refurb is okay, and I'm ready to move if it stacks. Now, it's very boring, but it's very consistent. And newsflash, it's very effective. Then you can move on to what I call the awkward stock play. And this is a bit of a cheat code, if I'm honest. So once a month, I want you to send via email or text or even on the phone. I will say, if you've got anything awkward, if it's an ex-rental, maybe it needs a bit of a tidy up, if the property's in great disrepair, if you've got a problem tenant, send it over. I don't mind looking at those types of properties. Agents love shifting shite stock because it helps their numbers. And if they are already dealing with an awkward property sale for a whole host and variety of reasons, they will be all too obliged to send it to you if they feel that you're going to walk the walk. So become the person with your agent who loves awkward stock. You'll get the first look. Then what I want you to do is build your proof around it. And you're going to do this once a month. So if you're new, you'll say, and we do this once a month, we've got acquisition funds allocated for this quarter. And right now, I am portfolio building to spec. I am happy to send my criteria across in writing. Now, if you're more experienced, what I would tend to say is, we've just completed another buyer, or we have just completed on another purchase for another investor client, and we're actively looking for the next batch of purchases. It is the same criteria as usual. You're building credibility without having to do a TED talk. And the one line, like I mentioned at the start of the call today, or the podcast, should I say, the one line that flips the dynamic, and you can write this down, you can put it on your bumper sticker if you want, is that I place stock with pre-qualified bonded clients. So you're not asking, please, Lord, please help me. You're saying, hey, by the way, I can bring you deals. I can bring you business. We can complete on transactions. And that is all that agents care about. And I can assure you of that categorically. So to recap, agents will only ghost you when they get the impression that you're vague or unrealistic or inconsistent. The fix for all of this is to show certainty. You show certainty by having a clear criteria, a clear process, and probably most importantly, a consistent follow-up. And then you use the scripts. Follow up weekly, follow up monthly, and remember to ask for the shite stock, the awkward stock. Agents do not reward enthusiasm, they reward certainty. So here's my challenge for you today. Write down your criteria for the types of deals that you source in 2 or 3 lines. Do 5 agent calls today using script. I guarantee you, set a follow-up for weekly in your calendar. You do this, you will have your next deal in the next 30 days done. As always, guys, I hope today's podcast has been useful. If you're listening to this and it resonates, if you're listening to it and it hits home, please share it on your socials, tag me. I absolutely love to see the rave reviews that the podcast has been getting, and I am slowly but surely disrupting the property sourcing industry by busting one myth, one myth at a time. So if you're listening and this hits home today, this helps, or you get any takeaways from it, please share it to your socials, tag me, and have a fantastic weekend.